Jeff, I'm so glad you joined me today here on this call. Thanks for coming on. For those of you who don't know Jeff Holst, he is someone that I really look up to, really enjoy talking with him. He is a real estate investor, syndicator, located here in Chattanooga, but invests all over the country. He's an attorney, but he will tell you not to take legal advice. He's an author of numerous books. He's also one of which that I'm almost done with. He's the host of the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show and the Last Life Ever podcast. I think that's in a nutshell everything there.
Wow, look at that. I didn't even give you a bio and you were able to, do that. So good for you. Yeah, no, so, I mean, listen, just quick clarity. I'm a lawyer, but I don't practice law, right? So that's one
Yes.
thing about me. And yeah, I do. I mean, I invest wherever it makes sense to invest, and I sometimes put together deals for people. So you pretty much hit it right on. Um, and you got both of my shows in there, which is really impressive because usually people only remember one or the other. So
Yep. Well, I've been watching, I've been watching what you do. And like I said, very inspiring. You have a great story. And you're really easy to talk to, which is, I can't say about everybody. So I'm really excited to have you on the show and to get to talk to you about it. So let's jump in here. I mean,
sure.
tell me about where you are with your real estate business. What are you guys up to right now?
Well, okay. So right now is a little bit of a weird time because we're in the middle of this COVID-19 thing. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're watching this later, we're filming early May of 2020, um, it's just a weird time, right? We still don't know exactly what's happening. Collections from our multifamily, our apartments were really good for April. They're starting out pretty good for May. So I'm
Good.
more
Good.
optimistic than I was, like, say, mid-March when I was like,
Yeah.
I just don't know how people are going to pay.
Yeah.
But so far, people are paying. So I have about like 175-ish units of multifamily in a
Wow.
yeah, somewhere in that range. And that doesn't include a couple of deals that I invested in other people's deals on, like
Yeah.
other people's syndications, which would put us up around 300 or so if we counted those. So
That's awesome.
yeah, and I
Well,
mean,
how long
obviously,
have you been doing it?
so I bought my first buy and hold property in like 2011. And before that, I did a couple of flips. Like, I had a house hacking deal where I lived in this house with a $400 mortgage payment and rented out a couple bedrooms when I
Wow.
was in college and law school. So I did that. And then I did a flip in law school with a friend of mine, but we really didn't do too much real estate investing until once the Great Recession came, which we
Yeah.
might be in the throes of a new one of those. Who knows, right? We still don't really know what's going to happen here. So
Yeah. We'll see. I guess we all are right there with you. It's hard to tell. I actually had a conversation with a tenant yesterday who is behind on rent. And I talked to the lawyer and said we are months out of an eviction. He recommended that we try to work it out with the tenant before going down the eviction route. Um, and luckily, I had a conversation with them, and she said that she was making the full payment today, actually. So,
well, hopefully you get that. I mean, the
yeah,
stimulus helps with that, right?
right,
So what we've done with people that lost their jobs or whatever reason couldn't pay is we've said, look, we need to, weird. My phone started talking like yours did there. So we
yeah,
need to, we need to, like, uh, be really progressive in reaching out to them and kind of
yeah,
say to them, hey, we know that this is a challenging time, but if you don't pay your rent, we're not going to be able to pay the mortgage. If we don't pay the mortgage, then you're not going to have a place to live anyway. And
yeah,
it's not like this obligation to pay rent goes away. Like, if you don't pay for 3 months, yeah, it's true, we might not be able to kick you out for the next 3 months, but when we get 3 months from now, you're going to owe $3,000 or $2,500, and you're not going to have the money. So it's better for us to try to work it out now. And so we just have these like really honest conversations with people,
Yeah.
and then point out things like, you know what, if you are getting a stimulus check, then maybe you should use that for your rent. And
That,
honestly, most people have been, and they don't have a lot of stuff they can spend money on right now.
yeah, right.
It's not like
Let's
they're
just
going out to the
foreclose.
bars or
Right.
restaurants or whatever.
That's
Um,
exactly right. And I have noticed that, at least, I don't have any terrible tenants. I actually personally like everyone that we're renting to, because I met with them and actually got the feel for who they were. And we had those honest conversations, like you just said. If you don't pay your rent, I can't pay the mortgage and I'm going to lose this house. And the first thing that's going to happen when that happens is you're going to get kicked out because the bank will get you out first and foremost. So,
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And the other thing you can do too is if you have someone who's just being super difficult, you can kind of make the decision that like it's kind of like I have to get them out right now and I can't evict them. So what's my next best alternative?
yeah,
And one alternative which we've used a couple of times is we said, look, you didn't pay the last 2 months rent. If we evict you a month from now or whatever, you're going to end up owing all this money and we're going to get a judgment against you. We're going to go after you. But if you just leave now, hand over the keys, tell us you're done. We'll sign something saying we're never coming after you for that money. Don't like walking away from money, but what I really don't like doing is chasing people 3 months from now for money that I'm probably never going to collect anyway.
right.
So I'd rather get them out now and re-rent it immediately. So like if your person doesn't pay this payment today, then the next strategy might be to say, hey, maybe it's time to start looking for somewhere else to live,
Yeah,
and kind of give them that kind of encouragement to like walk away by saying, hey, and some people will even pay people to leave, right? They'll say, here's, if you're out by Friday, I'll give you like, $300 or $500. And there's an advantage to that too. And I had to do something like that in one of my duplexes where there were some squatters and there's like no way to evict them right now. I don't know how they got in there, but I had to deal with it. And so
yeah.
we just paid them to leave,
Wow.
because what are you going to do? You got to get it
Yeah.
cleaned out and
There's no,
ready to go.
sometimes that's your only option. I think they call that cash for keys.
Sure.
Yeah. Not the best option, but yeah, it is. If we had to do it, we would do it for sure.
Yeah, so it's not an option that I normally favor. In fact, I'm usually pretty much against that. But because the courts are shut down right now, we have to go to our next plan. It's like plan B or C, right?
Plan B or C,
Um,
right?
yeah, and that's right around plan C for me. It's not my first option, but it's not my last either. So
Right, right, absolutely. Well, cool. I'm glad that that rent collection has not fallen out for you completely. 'Cause I mean, I know.
yeah, it's been really strong. Last month might have been stronger than usual.
Wow.
And I've talked to a lot of multifamily people that have said that, and I think it's actually because we were a little scared at the beginning of the month, so we were really proactive about collecting rents, which I think helped. And then the
Yeah,
other thing is you have to remember, like for April at least, most of the people were still working up until the mid part of March.
yeah,
And then they got their last paycheck, the beginning of April-ish, right? So they're paying that rent out of their normal cash flows. So this May one is actually more critical. But the stimulus came in this month, and most of the people have gotten, somewhere between 1,200, 2,400, or even more if they have some children. Um, and if their rent's $800 or $700 or whatever it is, and you just got a check for 2,400, and their restaurants are closed and the stores are closed, well, you're going to pay your rent.
yeah.
This is what you're going to do. You're going to pay your rent and utilities.
First.
Which and all the surveys that I've read seem to indicate that's what most people are doing with that. Now, what will be interesting to see is if there's not another round of stimulus and stuff is still shut down and unemployment's still 20% or something like that, what it will look like the 1st of June, right? That's going to be the real interesting.
Yeah, I read a very interesting article about that. How they're talking about, like foreclosures don't start happening till at least 90 days past, missing all the rent. And now the fact that we just got the stimulus check, like I think that's going to help a lot of the mortgage payments come in. So yeah, I mean, for anyone who is sitting on the sidelines with cash, hoping to scoop up a foreclosure, I mean, I think we're I think we're 90 to 120 days out from seeing any of those foreclosures.
No, that's like the pre-foreclosures. Like
Yeah.
foreclosures, like I used to be a bankruptcy attorney, so I can tell you that foreclosures typically don't get started until they're 90 days behind. And right now, there's prohibitions against foreclosures in most jurisdictions anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Certainly, FHA-backed loans and stuff are all you can't foreclose on them.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen is, we could be 6 months out before we see a wave of foreclosures. If we ever do, the stimulus might honestly prevent that from ever being an issue.
Right.
I just don't know. I just have no way to know. Like, if we're still shut down 6 months from now, there's going to be foreclosures unless they keep throwing out $2 trillion a month in stimulus, and I don't know how long the government can do that. So.
I don't. If they do that, in my opinion, there's going to be much bigger issues than a few foreclosures.
Oh yeah, well, and then prices will be going up too, right? Because if you keep throwing money out like that, that's going to cause inflation. I mean, they've spent almost $5 trillion already, and our gross domestic product is what, like 8 or 9 trillion. So it's like half a year worth of the income of the country has been spent on this already.
And just thinking about what that's going to do to the purchasing power of our dollars right now, I mean, it kind of keeps me up at night, to be honest with you. But
well, it's a good time to have a lot of debt. So if you're heavily leveraged, maybe you'll be okay. I'm not saying like you shouldn't have some cash, because like for the short term, having some cash is really important, right? Because you need to be able to keep your stuff, because if you don't make your mortgage payments, that debt goes away in a way that's not attractive to you. Right.
So then would you say that right now is a good time to be holding on to assets or cash?
Well, I always think it's a better time to hold on to assets. I've always been an asset heavy person. Like I just, you should have some reserve cash. I mean, if you are sitting out there right now listening to this and you have $0 in the bank, you shouldn't go try to buy a no money down real estate deal, right? It's just not a good, it's not a good time to do that.
Right.
If, on the other hand, you are sitting on, $100,000 in cash, and your monthly expenses are, $5,000 a month, so you have enough to pay for like a year and a half of your living expenses on your cash, then you're probably a little bit too heavy on cash, right? So like, that 3 to 6 months emergency fund is sort of the typical rule. And now I think you should be closer to the 6-month deal. So like for me, I spend a lot of money, so I need to have a bit of cash set aside. I don't actually have enough to make me feel comfortable, because I always buy assets as soon as I have money. I don't like that. Right now, I kind of wish that I had kept more cash. And so when we get out of this in the future, one of my goals is going to be to accumulate a little bit more cash so that I stay at that 6-month mark of living expenses. So if something like this happens again, I'm not going to have any stress on it. Because I have 6 months worth of my expenses in the bank. And I think, so that's where I would say, but anything more than that, I mean, if you're sitting on 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 in cash, you should be actively pursuing assets with that.
Because my concern there is, if you're sitting on that much cash and the government keeps printing money for the stimulus, how much less is that cash going to buy you than it is today?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Now, it's also dependent a little bit on your situation, right? If you're a billionaire and you have 300,000 in cash, that's not nearly enough. Like, you should also have a percentage of your net worth in cash, because you need liquidity to cover your assets, right?
Yes.
So I would say for most people, 6 months living expenses makes good sense. And it should probably be between 5 and 10% of their net worth in cash. If they have significant assets. If you are a person that has no real assets, maybe a negative net worth or a small net worth, maybe all you have is a 401k or something, or maybe just your personal residence, then it's going to be a higher percentage of your net worth that needs to be in cash, right? Because you need to hit both. I would look at both. 1, 6 months living expenses, that's going to be whatever. Let's say it's $30,000 for you. And then, 5 to 10% of your net worth. Well, if your net worth is $10 million, then you probably need to have 400,000 or 500,000 in cash, right? If your net worth, on the other hand, is 30,000, then you need to have 30,000 in cash, because you need 6 months worth of living expenses. Then it's 100% of your net worth in cash, right? So you kind of have to you have to, and you really shouldn't be investing if you don't have a cash cushion. And then the other thing is, or some kind of liquid asset, right? It doesn't literally have to be cash. It could be, some kind of like trading account that's not an IRA or a 401k. And I keep some money in the market that way, but that's much riskier, right? So you have to have some flexibility on that. Particularly lately, that's been pretty risky.
Oh my God.
And then the other thing I would do is I would definitely evaluate right now, if you just woke up today and you're sitting on $500,000 in cash and you have a $500,000 net worth, all your money's in cash. I'm not sure even in that scenario, I would say run out and buy a bunch of stuff this week, because we still don't know exactly what's happening with the market. And so while I don't recommend people wait, usually right now, I think unless you're buying something that you're very confident buy and hold, and you're very confident of the rents, that it's best to just wait a little bit. If you're like a house flipper or something, or you're going to try to do the BRRRR method, something like that, I don't think I'd be doing that right now. I'd be picking up, if you can find a really good deal, and it's going to cash flow super well, and you can get the financing locked in right now, or you can pay cash for it, that's fine. But don't go out and buy hard money, expensive loans, because I don't know what the lending environment will be like in 3 months. And I don't know what
that's a really
ARVs will be in 3 months.
I mean, that's a great point. That's exactly kind of what happened to everyone, in the mid 2000s. They were in these loans that they really couldn't support on their own, or the cash flow couldn't really support it. And the values melted and they were stuck,
Yeah, and that's the thing. They depended, like a lot of people were buying stuff with like very low interest arms under the theory that the price would go up. They could refinance later,
right,
or sell later and pay off the loan. And they had like 2 or 3 years, and then they had a rate adjustment, and then rates were way higher, and then they could no longer support it, right? So, you could have a property, theoretically, let's say $100,000 property with a $500 a month payment because it's a lower interest rate, and then it makes $700 a month or whatever, so you're okay. But then the interest rate adjusts, and now your payment's $900 a month, and instead of making $200 a month, you're losing $200 a month. And that's even if everything else is the same, that can be a huge problem. And people, I think, don't appreciate the risk of rate repricing. There's a reason that adjustable rate mortgages are much cheaper than fixed rate mortgages in the investing world. Now, there's an exception to that for your personal residence, because there's some government programs that purposely buy down those loans. They add a lot of liquidity to that market. But for your investment purposes, the adjustable rates are always cheaper, but not necessarily a better deal.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know. You
got to underwrite risk. I mean, that's the thing. You need to recognize that it's possible that your rates are going to go up, and that you're going to have higher payments if you have an adjustable rate. If you have a fully amortizing loan, you have less risk. You might have less cash flow on the front side, but you have less interest rate risk and financing risk. And so you kind of have to evaluate those things. And there isn't a right answer. I can't say like always do adjustable rates or always do fixed rates. It's different on every deal. It depends on what your strategy is. For me, we typically shoot for, right now, we're looking for longer terms on any arms that we have. So like 5 years minimum before rate adjustment. 7 years is even better, right? Same thing with balloon payments. We don't want balloons in the next 5 years because we just don't know what's going to happen. And the thing is, the people that I knew that had real estate in 2005 that got crushed were people that had to refinance or sell during the recession. If you bought in 2005 or 2006 at the top of the market and you sold in 2019, you did fine. It didn't matter, right? Like you made a ton of money. Yes, the market went way down, but it came way back up. And that's the way markets work. If you buy today, let's say today's the top of the market and we have a recession tomorrow, doesn't matter. If you keep it, it still cash flows the whole time. It pays for itself. Even if you sold it for less in the future. I mean, if you put 20% down on something, held it for 20 years on a 20-year amortizing loan, and it was paid off, and you had to sell it for half as much, and you cash flowed the whole time, you still came out ahead, right? Even though you sold it for half what you paid for it.
And it just got, yeah, you paid your loan down and you were making money every single month
Yeah.
the whole time.
Yeah.
No,
So, I mean,
that's
I
absolutely,
always say, buy good deals and the rest will work itself out. But the one caveat to that is buy good deals that you can hold on to for the long term. So you
that is
have to make sure you're pricing
gold.
that risk in.
If you're listening to this right now, that is absolute gold. And honestly, it's of all the times I've listened to you and that we've had conversations, that's probably been my number one takeaway is you have to buy a good deal no matter what. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I always say is, buy whenever you buy and just sell when it's high.
yeah.
Like, just don't sell when it's low. It doesn't matter. Like, if you buy it now, just sell it when it's higher. Like, it's easy to do that. It's hard to know where we are in the market cycle, but
Yeah.
it's really easy to know if something's worth more than you paid for it.
Yes, absolutely.
So people are always like, you make all your money when you buy. Well,
No,
that's true if you're trying to flip or you're going to do a burn, refinance right away. There's definitely an advantage to getting a better deal on the front end. I'm not just discouraging people from getting the best deal they possibly can. But the reality is, you don't make any money when you buy. You make money when you put it in your pocket, right? So
yeah,
that's when the money's made. Is
yeah,
when it's actually in your bank account or in your pocket. That's when you
yes,
have the money.
yes, absolutely. And I would say the only, I mean, if you buy a deal that is so good that you know that it's worth, you know, 30-40% more than you bought it for, I mean, that's basically purchasing money. But no, I mean, you're right. It doesn't matter until it's in your bank account.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're flipping houses, you need to buy really, really low prices and fix them up and sell them at a higher price. You have to do that.
Yeah.
Or if you're using like a burr strategy, which I'm a big fan of. Look, your cash on cash return is really important. So if you can refinance your way out and get all your cash back and still own that asset and have a little bit of equity in it still, then your cash on cash return becomes infinite, and infinite returns are amazing, right? Like, you
That's
should
the goal.
definitely try for infinite returns if you can
Yeah.
get them, but recognizing that all of that is much, much less important than having cash that continues to pay you, right? You
Yes.
can buy a lot of properties that pay you a small amount of money per month, but you can't buy very many that cost you a small amount of money per month,
Yeah,
right? Like, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If
you'll
you
very quickly run out of money that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you, let's say you have a good job and you make $100,000 a year or whatever, and then you buy a property that costs you $200 a month, and you're thinking, well, it's paying for itself, and like I can afford $200 a month. Okay, you probably can, right? But if you lose your job, you're in trouble then, right?
Yep.
But not only that, how many of those can you buy? You make $10,000 a month,
Wow.
$9,000 a month. Like, if you buy
Yeah.
10 of them, then you're down to 7,000 a month, and it's affecting your lifestyle, right? It might
And
make you
why
wealthy over the
why
long
would you
haul.
buy them? I mean, if you're, I mean,
People do it all the time, though. They think, oh, it's going to go up in value, or they think it's going to pay for itself over time, or they think, well, I might want to retire to this house later, and it's going to cost more to buy it in the future. People make those decisions all the time, and my answer is, don't ever make an emotional decision like that. Like,
yep,
always look at the numbers and make sure it's paying you. Don't buy things that don't pay you money.
yep,
Consider it like rent on your money. Just like you get rent when you own a house, you need rent on your money. If you're going to leave money out there, you need to be getting paid back on it.
yes,
And the more rent you get on your money, the better the deal it is, right? So you put it in the bank and they give you a 0.5% or a 1/4% or a 1/10% interest, not very much rent on your money. But you buy a really, a deal that you can keep with a small amount of money down and you feel very comfortable about the margins. That's great. Then, maybe you put $10,000 down on a house and it pays you $200 a month. That's great. That's 24% annualized return on your money. That's amazing, right?
that's good money.
$2,400 a year on $10,000. That's what you got to be looking for.
I
That
would do
cash on
those.
cash return.
I would do those deals all day long.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you? Because it pays it back. That's another ratio that I really like to look at is, how long does it take to get my money back? If
Yeah,
I can refinance it and pull my money back in 3 months, that's a really good deal, right?
excellent.
If
Yeah,
on the other hand, if it's like most deals, there's some seasoning requirement. Like, I bought this apartment complex down in Ringgold, a small
yeah,
one, 12 units. Put about $150,000 down on it, me and one other guy, and it took us 2.5 years to refinance it and pull the money out. That's pretty good though.
But you
Like,
got all your money back out.
yeah,
in
now I've got all my
2 years.
money back, and it's still cash flowing a couple
Yep.
$1,000s a month. And
That's the
that
deal.
to me, that's huge. Like
I do that deal all day long.
that's right. But yeah, and so if you get your money back in 2 years, that's great. But if you look at that a hypothetical $10,000 down deal that pays $2,400 a month, even if you can't refinance, or $2,400 a year, even if you can't refinance it, it's a little over 4 years. You got your money back. That's good. Some people are doing deals where it takes 10, 15, 20 years to get their money back. That's not good to me. Like, velocity of money is really important. You
Yeah,
got to keep
because
reinvesting it.
I mean, because yeah, I mean the velocity of money, you're absolutely right. Because eventually, if you keep doing deals like that, eventually you will run out of money, either in yourself or with people, with passive investors. You'll run out of money, and or people will stop coming to you because the deals aren't good enough.
Yeah, no, you definitely will. I mean, there's only I mean, there's essentially an infinite amount of money in the world,
Yeah.
but if you don't treat the money correctly, then the money dries up for you, right? Because, if you have really good deals, finding money isn't going to be that difficult.
Well, I'm super glad you just said that, because I did want to talk about it. What do you do to find money? I mean, I know that you're a syndicator, and you raise private equity for deals as long as they're good enough. So what are some of the strategies that you do for that? Like, what
Yeah,
did you do for your first deal, and then how does that differ from what do you do now?
sure. So our first deal, we didn't even really know what syndication was, and so we were just like, and I think this is true for most people that are getting started. My first deal, I bought with a friend. It was cash, right? Just a regular deal. But the first time we raised money, we went to, and this is in the heart of the recession, 2011. We went to an investor and said, "Look, we have this paid off condo that we own. It's probably worth $50,000. We actually had two of them, so they were worth about 50 a piece. And we said, why don't you give us $50,000, $25,000 mortgage on each one, and then put up 25,000 of your own money, and we're going to go buy this duplex for $75,000. So really, that investor put in all the money, but he got these mortgages on this other free and clear property that we had. So that's kind of how we started,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
Where we just partnered with someone where they loaned us money on other assets. And then that worked out pretty well for that investor. So then they started loaning us money to buy stuff without having to secure it on something else, right? So we
Yeah.
would do a deal where like he would loan us like $100,000, and we would go buy a property, and then we'd buy it in a company that we each owned a third of, right? Because there was the two of us plus the one other investor, and then he would loan the 100,000 to that company. We'd pay him 6% interest. And then we'd buy the property. The property would pay the interest payment to him, and then we divide everything up in thirds after that. And that's kind of how we started. It was just like, we're gonna find a deal. We're gonna explain to the person how it's a good deal,
Yeah.
and convince them that they should put the money up because we have the deal, basically. And that essentially is the same thing every syndicator does,
Yeah.
just in a little bit different form. Like that person was way more active, right? He wasn't a passive investor.
Yeah.
Because he was, in the thick of it with us,
Mhm.
and was full partner, no general limited partnerships, none of that stuff.
Making decisions with you.
Yeah, making decisions, helping us understand whether it was a good deal or not. And also, like, when we had, like, if one of us was out of town, they would be the person that would show up and knock on the door. They were way more active
Yeah.
than like our now syndicated deals are, right? Where these people have like really no activity other than just putting money up and hoping it works out, right? Now, they presumably, our investors are, and I know our investors are doing this, they're looking at our underwriting and seeing if what we're talking about makes sense. Like, they're making in smart decisions for themselves about whether or not a deal is a good deal or not. They're not just saying, oh, I like Jeff, so I'm going to give him money. I mean, that'd be cool if people want to do that. And if you guys are out there and you just want to give me money because you like me, I'll find something to put it in, I promise. But I think you should actually be analyzing it, right? Like, there's a risk return ratio. There's this thing we do on the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show called the passivity scale.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen this before, John? So what the passivity scale in my mind is that on one end you have, you're building something from the ground up. you're doing everything. You're renting it yourself. You're managing it yourself. You're fixing the toilets yourself. Like the whole thing. That's like the least passive form of real estate investing possible,
Yes.
right?
I have
And
seen
then on
this
the
video.
other end is
Yeah.
like you just put some money into like a real estate exchange traded fund on the stock market, and
Yep.
then you basically just put some money into that fund, and that's it. You never think about it
Yep.
again, right? Those
Yep.
are the two ends of the passivity scale. Those are the extreme ends, though. There's a lot of stuff in between. I think investing in other people's deals is much more passive, but it's not as passive as putting it into like a REIT, right?
Yeah.
Like when
Right.
you invest in someone else's deal, you need to underwrite your deal sponsors. You need to think about what deals you want to do. Like I might have a deal that's great for you today,
Yeah.
and tomorrow I might have a deal that's not a good fit for you. Some of my deals are deals that are designed to produce cash flow. Some are designed to produce long-term capital gains. Some are, not going to give you anything, but they're going to be a conversion project. Like we might buy an apartment complex that needs a full renovation, and it's going to pay out $0 for 2 years. And then after that, it's going to refinance. You're going to get some cash back and some cash flow going forward, right? Or we're going to sell it, and then you're going to get your money on the sale, right? But then
Yeah.
other deals we'll buy, it's just like, look, it's going to cash flow right out of the gate. You're going to get X dollars a month, or we estimate it to be this amount per month for your investment, whatever percentage return, whatever it is. And the investor that's interested in that deal isn't always the same as it's interested in the other deal, right?
So then, and I have seen the video with your passivity scale, and I love it. If you guys are watching, you need to go check it out and go check out his whole channel because it's super informative.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
So what would you? I'll link it in the bio down below.
Cool.
So then, I'm assuming then when you're doing your underwriting and you're thinking about putting a project together and thinking about putting the offering memorandum together and marketing this thing out to your investors, how do you decide who gets what? I mean, how are you going to market
Yeah.
this
So,
deal to Bob and this deal to Sally over here? I mean,
yeah.
what's
So,
some of the
okay.
differences you
Yeah.
do?
So, and I didn't answer your first question because I got sidetracked. So I'll go
Please
back
tell.
to that in a minute. But so the answer to that question is it's a feel thing for us because we're raising relatively small pools of money from relatively small amounts of investors. So we kind of know who's looking for what. But we're
Okay.
working right now actively on developing a database of our investors where we put notes in, this person's interested in these kind of deals. And we can filter that based on the kinds of deals that they're interested in. And we know to push it out to those people. But honestly, I think a scatter approach works because you don't know. It might be that John Stewart today doesn't want to deal with cash flow deals. He just wants to put his money into, long-term appreciation deals. But then 6 months from now, something might have changed, right? And
Yeah.
right now, it could be 6 months ago they had one thing, and then the coronavirus happened, and now they want cash flow, but before they wanted appreciation, or
Yeah.
vice versa. They
Yeah.
might be looking at the world differently now because of the new lens that they're filtering through. And it might not be that. It could be a divorce, or it could be, one of their kids got out of college and now they're more interested in retiring. It just doesn't. You just don't know what the situation is. So what we always do is, if we have a particular investor we know likes a certain type of deal, we're going to pick up the phone and call them, right? And we're going to say, hey, we got this deal. We want to talk to you about it. But we're going to also take and send out the deal to the entire list of investors, right? Regardless of whether we think they're interested or not, but it's going to be a different approach. It's going to be like, here's this deal. Just, if you're interested, give us a call, right?
Yeah.
Where like, we can then pick up the phone and call the people that we say, hey, we sent out this deal last week, and it's the kind of deal that you've told us before you like, right? So,
Yeah.
so because of that, I picked up the phone to call you to see if you had any questions about it, right? That's the distinction. Where if I'm going to send it to you and you normally don't buy cash flow deals, right? I might not call you, right? I might if I need the money, right? I might still reach out to you and say, hey, did you see this? I like it for this reason, but I'm not going to put a hard sale on someone because I believe that this is a long-term game and people have their own goals and hopes and desires, and we need to be helping them achieve their own goals. And if your
Yes.
goal is cash flow, then it doesn't make sense for me to give you, equity deals that are not going to cash flow, right? If I know about you that you want cash flow, then I'm not going to try to push you into a deal that you're not going to be happy with. It doesn't do you any good, because what that means is when I have a deal that you would be happy with, you're still pissed about the other deal you're in, and I can't get you into the new deal, right? So it's super important that you learn enough about your investors to understand what stuff is good for them and what's not. And you can let them self-select, though. That's what I'm saying. You can still send it to them, but don't try to push them into it, right? And of course, this is not legal advice, okay, just to be clear. But there are a lot of laws associated with this stuff, right? And you really need to have a good securities attorney explain to you what your options are, because how you market depends a lot on the type of deal you're in and what kind of securities exemption you're operating under. Assuming you don't have a securities license, and if you do, then you better be talking to your managing brokers and stuff about how you're marketing, because that's an entirely different issue, right? I mean, so for us, we typically operate under one of two exemptions, like the 506B or the 506C exemptions. These exemptions.
Can you just explain what those are? Just really, I know you're not a lawyer. Just brief overview. Just talk about what those mean.
So the starting point is, you have to understand that, like, when you're selling real estate, it's different or you're taking on an active partner, it's different than taking on a passive partner. If you take a passive person's money into your real estate deal, you're not selling real estate, you're selling a security. So you're regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commissions. So anytime that somebody's passive, you're selling them a piece of the company that owns the real estate. So it's kind of like selling stock shares, right? And in order to sell stock shares, you have to have a securities license, or you have to apply for an exemption. And there are exemptions that are designed to do exactly what we do. The ones that I was mentioning, the 506B and the 506C, obviously run this all by a securities attorney, not by me, because I'm not a securities attorney, and I don't practice law. But the 506B and C have some subtle differences, and that exemptions basically allow you to raise an unlimited amount of money. One of them allows you to raise only from accredited investors. Okay. And accredited investors are people generally with a net worth of $1 million or more, not including their house, or somebody who's made $200,000 a year for the last 2 years and expects to make at least that much again for a third year. So if you're under that exemption, you can market a little bit more freely, but you have to verify their accredited status before you take their money. The other exemption, you can market to people that are unaccredited if you want. You can take money from unaccredited people if you want, right? But you have to have had a substantial pre-existing relationship with them, right? So someone who's on my mailing list that I've talked to several times and I know really well, right? Like, I can tell you about my deal that's, regardless of whether you're accredited or not, John, I can just tell you about my deals because we know each other. But I can't go out on your channel and say, hey guys, I got this great deal, you should send me money, because that would be a violation. Now, on the other hand, if I was operating under the exemption, I always forget which one's which right off the top of my head, and I'm drawing a mental blank right now.
I think C is the accredited, and I think
B so I think you're right. So if I'm operating under the one that requires you to be an accredited investor, I could say, hey, I got this deal, this is how it works, feel free to give me a call. I can buy billboards and put them on the highway. I can do all that stuff. But then when you call, you're going to have to go through a third-party verification system. You're going to have to verify to me that you actually are accredited. And you're going to have to do that by, like, having a CPA statement done or a third-party verification statement done by some company that specializes in this stuff to make sure that you're actually accredited. And there are advantages and disadvantages to this. And also, there's a lot of advantages to being able to market to non-accredited people. There's advantages to, and there's a lot of rules on how you can do this, now you can't, but there's advantages to the 506B as well. But the key is these people have to know, like, and trust you regardless. So to me, it doesn't really matter what exemption you choose. You need to be getting to know your investors. You need to be out networking. So this is like circling back to your first question, which is how do I personally raise money? I raise money, and I'm hampered by this right now because of coronavirus, but I raise money by the same way I met you, right? I went and I met you at an event, And then I said, hey, let's go out for coffee sometime. Let's go out for a drink, whatever it is, right? Let's
Yep.
go hang out and talk and get to know each other. I want to find out what you're doing, and I want to tell you about what I'm doing. And if I'm
Yep.
doing that correctly, people know that I'm raising money for deals, and they're saying, hey, tell me about your next deal. And when people start saying, hey, tell me about your next deal, then you know that you're in the position where they're interested in what you're doing. And I've listen, we picked up investors from just like local meetups. We've picked up investors from our show. You know, that's one of the reasons we do the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show.
Right.
I think we produce really great content. We sell some T-shirts and stuff, but we don't make money on the show. The show doesn't make us money. It costs money every month, right?
Yeah.
But we try to add super value. So when people watch the show, they recognize we know what the heck we're talking about. They get comfortable with us. That's the know, like, and trust you. And then they can reach out to us and say, hey, I love your show. I would love to talk to you about your investment opportunities sometime. And that's great. I love that when that happens. That's why we do the show, right? It's probably
Yeah.
why you're doing this show, honestly, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you want to raise money. Like, you want people to know, like, and trust you.
It is.
You want them to tune in and see you and say, hey, you know, this guy knows what he's talking about.
I want people to reach out to both of us and say, hey, I want to hear about your next deal, maybe together. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. You know, so look, I'm not pitching people to call me because, you know, that's not what I do. But the point is, I want to provide value to people.
Yeah.
And actually, this is something that that I think about a lot in my other show as well. Because, you know, you mentioned at the beginning, I have this other show, The Last Life Ever. What my sort of trajectory is I was not in real estate. You know, I was a lawyer. And, you know, for a variety of reasons, I decided I need to produce some passive income. Mainly, I wanted to take care of my family if something happened to me. And so I started doing that. And after a while, I got, like, it took about 7 or 8 years. I got to the point where I didn't need to work anymore. I could live off of my real estate investment, which is awesome. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's sort of everyone's dream, right?
Yeah.
And so I quit working. And about a month or two later, I was like, man, I need to find something else to do. And so I was listening to podcasts and stuff, and I heard about syndications, and I thought, I should learn how to raise money for deals, and I can go buy apartment complexes. At that point, I had no apartment complexes, right? This is a few years ago. And so I said, I'm going to work on buying apartment complexes. And so we went out and we figured out how to buy apartment complexes, and we still didn't syndicate any deals, right? We just went and bought apartment complexes. And then I thought, well, it's really great. These apartments are amazing. I know other people that would really benefit from investing in this kind of stuff, but can't. So I need to figure out how to help them invest in it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how we started raising money for deals, is because we wanted to help people meet their goals. And that, to come full circle, is really what Last Life Ever is about. It's about helping people reach their goals, helping them live the best version of their life. Now, I'm a real estate person. That's not a real estate show. It's more like it's more like personal development, motivation,
Yeah.
encouragement kind of stuff. But it's really great, and it fits that same overarching theme of my life, which is just like, I just, at this point in my life, I could just go sit on a beach, right? Like, I go hang
Yeah.
out on the beach. I don't have to be on your show at all. I could just be, you know, doing what I normally do, which is, you know, being lazy. Whoop, that's you. Look, I've joined you. I meant to go to here. I was saying I'd go to the beach,
Okay.
right? So I could be
I was
sitting
like,
on the
we're
beach.
both in San Francisco.
Yeah, only for a second though. I moved to the beach. So
Okay.
yeah, so I could be sitting on the beach, you know, letting the wind blow behind me, maybe do some diving and stuff. And I do that kind of stuff. I love doing that kind of stuff. But if I just did that, I wouldn't be fulfilling my life purpose, which is to help other people achieve their goals.
And you
so
know what?
that's why we raise money for deals, and that's why we do Last Life Ever.
I think that is so important why you said that. And honestly, like, I'm not going to go deep into it too much because we could do a whole number of interviews about it, about our why. But I think at the end of the day, everybody has a why that is in some way going to help other people, you know? At least I want to think that most people are that way. Maybe not, but I think most people are that way. And that's so cool. I'm so glad that you said that.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't know what other people do and think, right? I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
But I do know that most of the people that I hang out with, the people that I enjoy to spend time with,
Yeah.
they're not doing it to pile up a bunch of money. They don't want to be Scrooge McDuck swimming through a pile of gold coins in a silo somewhere, right? Like
Right.
that doesn't do any good to me. It doesn't do any good to
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
Like, well, it would be kind of fun to have a pile of gold coins just for fun, right? I don't see how that brings any real value to the world. And
Yeah.
for me, in order to live a full life, you have to be experiencing things, you have to be doing things, and you have to be helping people. And you need money to do that. So you do need to make money. And real estate is a great avenue to make money, but there are plenty of other ways to make money. And whatever it is you choose to do to generate your cash needs to be something that you enjoy doing. And then you also have to be protecting the cash that you have, which is what I was saying. Like, you need to be getting rent on your money because otherwise, you're losing to inflation, especially now, right? Like the buying
Especially
purchasing
now.
power could go down tremendously. We don't know. It might not because the whole world's doing it equally, which is an interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
Every
Right.
place in the world is doing it,
Yeah.
and buying power is relative, right?
Yeah.
So,
It is.
um, so if everything is inflating at the same rate worldwide, then it might not matter, right? But it does matter if you're sitting on just cash, right? And that's where like maybe having some commodities or something might make sense. And that's a much deeper topic that we probably don't
Yeah.
have time to get into
Sort of
on this
out of the
show.
scope of this. We can do another show later.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to come on again and do another show. I have no issue with that.
Yeah.
I'm actually filming an episode of the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show in just a few minutes, so I will have to jump off in a second.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. That's totally fine. I am so glad that you took the time out to join me here. I had a lot of fun. I hope everyone watching gained a tremendous amount of knowledge from this very smart guy here on the show.
you're too
Jeff,
kind.
Jeff, please tell everyone where they can reach you, the best way to get a hold of you.
Yeah, so
Other people.
it depends a little bit on what they want, right? If they want to talk to me, just talk to me or about real estate. Probably the easiest way to find me is just to go to jeffreyholst.com, which is spelled exactly like my name, JEFFREYHOLST.com. That's my personal website. There's a contact me thing on there. There's a little bit about Last Life Ever. There's a little bit about my coaching program, all that kind of stuff on there. But otherwise, I'm not hiding. If you Google me, you're going to find out I've been interviewed on a gazillion shows. And, oldfashionedrealestate.com is an option. Or, my Facebook page or Instagram. All of those are like just Jeff or Jeffrey Holst. Like, so I'm
Awesome.
easy to find.
Awesome. And I'm gonna link your show down in the bio below. Thank you guys for watching. This has been a great interview with one of the smartest people I know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe below. Again, the link is there to Jeffrey's show. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.